I'm going to catch hell for a little bit of this, but I figured I'd propose the question just in case and just to prep us for what may be on the way. But Silent Hill 2's remake doesn't contain any sign of Eddie. We had what vaguely looked like someone throwing up a little bit ago, but that was kind of it. So I proposed this question, and as I said, the comments are going to light up as they have been the last couple days here, but what happens if Eddie's not in Silent Hill 2? And how is the story affected thus far? Let's find out, shall we?
What's that? Huh, radio. What's going on with that radio?
So what happens if Eddie doesn't show up in the plotline? What happens if they completely omitted his character for whatever reasons, whether you say they're woke or whatever the hell else? I don't care. But for whatever artistic reason or corrupt reason or stupid reason, they said, hey, you know what? Eddie's no longer needed. We're not going to put him in the storyline. What would that do to James? What would that do to the plot? I asked this question, and I potentially have an answer. But before I get to that, folks, I just wanted to welcome you guys to the Riot Stream. This is a show where I talk about everything that I love, and for the most part, it's Silent Hill. I talk about other things as well, and you definitely can check out my library, and you can find out what that's all about. If you like what you see here, hit the subscribe button. I just got partnered, which means everything's monetized. So now I have corporate ads showing up in between everything, like a regular YouTuber, like a real boy. But I digress. You know, my wife actually brought this up to me yesterday, and the question was fairly simple. What if Eddie simply wasn't in Silent Hill 2 Remake? I think first and foremost, a lot of fans would simply opt out of the game, or at least tell everybody they wouldn't be buying the game, and understandably so. You just carved out one of the main components of this plot line, and the other half would be entirely too skeptical about the whole entire project as a whole, and rightly so, because we've just spent the last 25 years with this game building theories and things of that sort, all to find out the characters don't exist. The best way I can compare it is when the original Silent Hill movie came out. We knew it was going to be a basically reimagining of the first game, but we didn't know to what extreme. Come to find out, boop, there's no Harry Mason. It was very upsetting to find that out. However, after a while, we kind of just rolled with it, and there were some that loved the movie, there were some that hated it, there's some that dealt with it, and there were some that said it could have been better, could have been worse. And that's what I kind of compare this to. If, say, for instance, Eddie was not in Silent Hill 2, it would be one of those situations where we get an alternative version of the same story we saw before, only without one of what we thought would have been key components to the story. Harry was an unmistakable key part of the story, but with the entire Silent Hill 1 plot without him turned out to do okay. Anyway, but that's what I compare it to initially. But what about something more intertwined with James and just how he interacts with the city himself and how things are going? Well, the easiest explanation is and it's based on what theory we're using. If we're using the theory that every single person in Silent Hill is a real person, every last one of them, then Konami can kind of or Bloober can kind of do whatever they want. If Eddie turns out not to be real, they'll just get someone to replace him, or they'll just leave him out of the story entirely. When it comes to physical people being there, if Eddie is in fact real, then there's no love lost if Eddie doesn't show up. Laura can still wander around the place. You can spend more time with Laura than Eddie will in the remake. And then on top of that, it's one less interaction and disjointed boss battle. And yes, as much as I love Silent Hill 2, the Eddie boss battle is disjointed as shit. Going in there, you're just kind of like, oh, by the way, Eddie's here in the labyrinth? Okay. And you just randomly fight him. It was a cool fight. His character was okay, but let's be absolutely real. There was really no way you could fight him without you didn't even have to fight him, really. He could have just been a part of the plot line, and you could have just moved on from there. But that was not the case. They wanted to fight him, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so assuming that all these side characters are in fact real, besides Maria, of course, because that's silly, but assuming all the other characters are real, then having Eddie gone really won't truly hurt the plot. It'll hurt our nostalgia and our feels, most certainly. Now, if we look at Silent Hill the way I did in, I think, 3 or 4 videos ago, where they were totems nearly. Each character represented a piece or facet of James' mind, circumstance, situation, and psyche. If we look at them that way, Eddie's purpose and usefulness kind of exponentially grows because Eddie becomes the monstrous side of murder, the downside of taking a life. It becomes a self-blame, reflective look at what happens when you murder someone, and instead of just kind of walking away like it's just another day at the office, you now look at yourself as a monster, and I do believe Eddie was that monster. So having him kind of just out of nowhere keep getting in James's way, only to have to be literally killed later on as a boss battle, just shows that James, no matter what happens, has this nagging feeling that he questions whether or not he is a monster himself. You have every other character walking around, and he meets them from time to time, and yes, we get to see them, and we get to kind of see what other parts of his mind or other thoughts in his mind are rattling around. But as for Eddie, without him, it sets a different precedent altogether. See, without this reminder that he believes him to be he believes himself to be a monster for what he's done, without Eddie, you simply don't have that aspect. And the delusion and the denial is damn near doubled. You have a situation where without Eddie, James simply believes that there is no monstrous side of him. Everything he did was out of mercy, or he can simply deny it altogether. He doesn't have to concern himself with the what have I done aspect, with the I have to justify myself aspect. Every part of it completely deleted from the Silent Hill 2 game. So then one must ask themselves, is that necessary? Is that needed? And I can't rightly say if it's needed or necessary. Changing the plot already will come with a lot of difficulties. They've already obviously had time to undo things and redo things and all that good stuff. But changing it this dramatically better come with a different payoff with equal effect or greater. And I don't know that Bloober Team and their writers can do that. I don't necessarily know that Eddie, or the story without Eddie simply becomes something greater because he was a hindrance on the plot to begin with. Yes, I may have made my joke about this fight being very disjointed and kind of unnecessary. Yeah, I get it. However, Eddie felt useful to the plot in a way that if we're looking at it like Eddie needs to confront all of these people before he can finally see Mary, okay, it makes sense. So what happens if he's missing? Well, James is walking around truly believing from the bottom of his soul that he's not a monster. What he did was to save his wife, and now his wife wants to see him again, and he's gonna see her. Goddammit, and that's it. You know what I mean? Like, now maybe I'm the only guy in the room that will say this, and comments you will definitely let me know. In terms of Eddie not being in the plot line, I'm used to, from a nostalgic standpoint and from a standpoint of me trying to tell this same story to, my kids and my kids' generation and everything like that, me trying to explain that story, I would need Eddie there because it just doesn't hit the same without him. However, if you can do it better and perfect a narrative that focuses on James and the plight he goes through just to get everything done and organized and neat before he goes and inevitably sees his wife, I'm all for it. If there's going to be a difference in plotline, if you're going to absolutely change it, then change it. I'll give you an example. When Avengers Endgame came out, or Avengers Infinity War, I was before the Avengers even came out, I was a huge fan of Thanos. Since Marvel superheroes on the PlayStation, I loved Thanos, and like anytime he showed up, I read the Infinity Gauntlet. I was like, this is the shit. So knowing the information I had then 15 years back when they finally decided to make movies on it and actually bring it to life and update it for the generation, I was confused at first because they did not follow the plot at all. The whole Infinity War and everything like that, just absolutely, besides the snap, there was nothing that was the same. And it worked, and why it worked is because the updates to the storyline, the changes to the storyline, are something, in my opinion, that didn't have to be done, but could be done, and it avoided me seeing the same exact thing I'd read in a comic for the last 10 years. Silent Hill 2, if they're smart, they won't carbon copy this shit, but I'm gonna need to see some even subtle differences. I want to see that they've stretched their legs out a little bit, because Bluebird Team is being trusted with a beloved game. However, when you're trusted with a beloved game, that does not mean you go and just add an HD texture over all the characters and just call it a night. That's not helpful. So I would be remiss if I didn't say I would like to see a Silent Hill 2 without Eddie in it, just to see how they could do it. But on the same token, I would not, because I don't want the risk involved. If they butcher this because there's zero Eddie in it and the story doesn't make sense and everything falls apart, I'm just going to be upset. You know what I mean? Oh, slap the microphone. Sorry. I would just be upset because they've wasted an opportunity, and then Konami wouldn't make money, and so Konami would be like, oh, okay, Silent Hill failed, let's make another pachinko machine, and then we'll store it in the cooler for the next 50 years. And I don't want that either. However, something on the path of different is not such a bad thing. And I won't get a lot of you to agree with me on that, and I get that. I'm not here to force you that different is good. There's some people who want to see the game look exactly, they want it to look exactly like that. And if it doesn't, then why are they even buying it? And then there's some people that just hate Bluebird Team. There are 1,000 reasons why you would or would not buy the game. But I will tell you that if we get something a little different, we get something in the realm of creative liberties, and they actually do something with the plot instead of changing the looks of outfits and shit like that, I don't care about. I'm all for it. Like, you changed Maria's outfit. She looks like a news reporter now. That's weird. You better do something in the plot to make up for that. And I think ultimately that's what I'm going to do. I'm gonna hold Bluebird to task about a lot of the changes made, because I want changes, but I'm going to ask you why, and I'm going to go justify this. And you're going to have to, because if you create a story and you say the man showed up and he wore a potted plant on his head, you better tell me why. And it better be a good reason, because it's a potted plant on his head. It's something that stands out. If you're going to remove Eddie from the game, tell me why. You know what I mean? That's ultimately what I'm driving at here. Ultimately, I'm a narrative guy. If the story works and comes out amazing, that's all I care about. You can change James into a, octopus man. I don't care. As long as the story is, we're good. And the idea of not having Eddie in the game presents a number of problems or difficulties, but it also presents new grounds that have been untapped for 25 years. You know what I mean? Like we already saw in the trailer that there's a lot more time with Maria chatting it up, a lot more time with Laura chatting it up, a lot more scenery to dive into. It's already going to be different. It's just a matter of how different and how butchered the initial plot line is. I don't need them to go and overhaul the plot line and just change everything, but we gotta kind of look at this thing like different is good. If we stay firm and stay solid grounded about it and keep our feet, firmly planted whenever people present new ideas on an old story, we're gonna get nowhere, because they're going to change the story, and we have to. There's no way they're going to, and this is a little bit from my previous video, there's no way they're going to do what the writers did for us. They can't do that. That's not in their wheelhouse. That's not in their skill set. So based on what they have in their skill set, I want to see what they can do with the same premise. You know what I mean? If that makes sense? I hope it makes sense. A lot of people went down a crazy route with me in comments in the last video, and understandably so. I'm not only am I trying to stay optimistic about the whole thing, but the idea that I simply will not move and I will not budge on this, I don't think I'm in that place, because I'd like to play a Silent Hill personally. I don't feel like we're absolutely wasting our money, and giving money to Konami kind of sucks, but I would like to play this game, so I want what I want. And on the same token, if you don't want what you don't want, then don't get the game. I get it. But it is what it is. I don't know. I just something I wanted to talk about. I'm going to get back to my regularly scheduled program in the next few here. I do have the Belmont family from Castlevania. I have the part 2 of their bloodline, which is a goddamn, like, it's a mess. It is an absolute mess. But had that coming along. But the content is not going to stop flowing. Now that I've been partnered and everything like that, I've got extra juice in me now. I'm super hyped and everything, and I appreciate you guys for getting me there. It will not go forgotten, I tell you that much. Special shout out to everybody on my Patreon. Without you guys, I would not be able to pay rent, so that's monumental. But make sure you pop in there and take a look. You get access to secret videos, stuff you wouldn't find on YouTube, and stuff that's hidden away. And sometimes they're embarrassing pictures of me. It's whatever, but you can pop through there, take a look, see. I've covered my birthday and plus my visit to the Dallas Dream Hack this year. Got some pictures in there and videos, Otherwise, if you like what you see, guys, pop over to the subscribe button, hit that sucker, and I will see you guys in the next video. And I'm getting the hell out of Dodge.
Eddie, have you gone nuts? I knew it.
You too! You're just like him, James!
Hey, I didn't mean anything.
Don't bother. I understand. You've been laughing at me all along, haven't you? Ever since we first met. I'll kill you, James!